So I just want to welcome people from that may be watching this. We want you to be part of our community. This has been a group of people that have hung together, and we're a nonprofit that we know what's happening here matters for you too. All right, sit up straight and tall. Start to feel more rather than less. One of the things that yoga is trying to show you, right, regardless of the body you live in, regardless of what you're living with, is that you are directly and more deeply connected to the space around you than you think. Right? That's the fundamental realization that yoga is trying to pass on. Is that you do your life, you guide your life, but in fact, you're more integrated with your life than you think you are. Right? And what gets in the way is how much we judge in our heads, right? So in the beginning here, when you're trying to center, right, presence is not something you intend. It's something that you allow. And I say that almost every class for the last couple of years, because that was a huge realization for me. And I have to keep reminding myself that what you are, and I don't just mean psychologically, I don't mean your personality, all those things, right? Here in the beginning of class, you're trying to get to what precedes your personality, precedes your choices, and actually emanates from being alive. That's the fundamental place where you're the most unified with the world. It's not all the other places. So in the beginning here, it's not, and it turns out that if your mind's really agitated, you're not going to be able to feel the connection as directly, right? So you're sitting here in the beginning allowing something, allowing sensation, allowing that there is a hum that is the sum total of what you are, and you can feel it if you get quiet enough. And if you can get quiet enough and simplify your experience, simplify it, you're going to feel more connected. Right? So let yourself be aware, more aware, especially of the space behind you that you can't see. Close your eyes from top to bottom if you haven't. There are certain places and spaces, especially the space behind you, but let there be distance and space between your shoulders and your ears. Connect that to what's behind you, even if you're leaning against a chair. You don't push thoughts out of your mind. You let them dissipate. If you can learn to land in your body, more directly in your spine, you will get more connected to living. Asana, which is what we're going to be teaching mostly today, is an attempt at congruence. How can you make your physical actions more congruent with what precedes? Because something does precede. So start to clarify by lifting up the front of your chest, broadening out across the shoulders, across the back ribs. Don't strain too hard, because if you strain too hard, you break connection. That doesn't mean you don't work. It means you learn how to work. So everybody's got a challenging body in the room. So you're trying not to get caught up on if it's perfect. You're trying to feel. So make sure you're broadening across the back ribs. And as you're sitting, there's a downward energy, a downward connection, and an upward connection. You're trying to realize this in an asana and for the rest of your life outside of a yoga class. If you can, and you can stay on balance, bring your hands into prayer. If you can't stay on balance, don't. I don't bring my hands into prayer in the beginning of a class because I can't balance. My mind gets caught on balancing. So now, connect the palms of the hands. Let the elbows be heavier, but everybody broadens across the collarbones. Everybody tries to feel a downward connection. Ground your feet, let the groins drop, but let the chest lift. Re-feel the space between your ear and your shoulders, but to the back of what's behind you. Let go of your day and prepare your mind to do yoga, to feel more, to allow for more. There is more here. This is the truth. As your mind starts to wane, repose, reutilize the body, reconnect. Good. And then release your hands down to your thighs, palms up. Take your sternum, everybody, take your sternum up towards your chin, which should make your shoulder, inner edge of your shoulder blades be a little bit more awake, right? Turn that on. Root your spine down. Feel the breath into each nostril. Feel the air come into each lung. Stay connected to your sitting bones. Stay connected to your feet. Good, and then raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So you do know, right, that your breath is an energy exchange. It's not just about the quantity of air, right? Because, and the delivery system turns out to be your blood. It turns out to be red blood cells, right? So the energy starts coming into the blood. It gets emanated at 120 miles an hour through your veins, through your arteries, right? And it actually changes color when you breathe, right? Blood that goes away from the heart is red. It gets oxygenized, right? And then it comes back blue. Like you're literally on the inside changing colors all the time. It's kind of stunning when you think about it. And it's beautiful, and it's a process. And the inhalation is going to do one thing, and the exhalation is going to do another, right? And so I want you to feel now, right, the expansion on the inhalation. So inhale up, like you can feel the expansion, right? And this idea that you're rising and falling in every moment of your day, it is actually true, right? And if you can get better at feeling okay with the falling part, you're going to suffer less, right? So you're trying to figure out how to balance the rising and the falling in every moment of every day. And this will be in every single pose. This will be true regardless of what condition you're living with. If you can get better at the down for the up, right? And the up grounds you down. So as you sit here and take a couple of breaths and you feel the inhalation, I want you to exhale now as if someone's pushing you from the back ribs, inner edge of each shoulder blade. I want you to get that the inhalation expands, but the exhalation is an opportunity to extend, right? So the ancient yogis will talk about that the exhalation stops 12 fingers above your head, right? And you go like, what? That sounds crazy, right? But they're just trying to show you something, that you're actually breathing more for your spine than you think. So if you inhale up and get the expansion outward, but then when you exhale, imagine that the exhale continues up above your head and then dissipates up above your head, right? Notice that when you exhale and you extend up the top of your head, something grounds down through the floor. Can you feel that? Feel that connection? Yeah. It's true in every breath. Now, this truth I'm trying to point out with your breathing right now is true all the time, right? So you're inhaling and expanding, and you're exhaling and extending. And you're growing both on the inhalation and on the exhalation, right? And you're trying to get that connection because you're supposed to be breathing more for your spine than you think. If you take one thing out of anything I ever show you, it's that you should breathe for your spine. So notice on the next inhalation, notice how the energy goes around the back ribs and goes right into the spine. You can feel your diaphragm extend across the back, right? That's like you're breathing right into your spine, right? So as you inhale, notice that your chest lifts, you expand, and you can feel the connection right to the back ribs. Now then, the spine doesn't steal. Your head steals from the world, right? Your spine doesn't, right? So let the spine return it. Right? So you inhale and you breathe right into your spine, and then you exhale and the spine pushes it back into the world because it doesn't steal. Right? And the more the better you can get in your life at breathing into your spine when you need energy, right? It's going to be a big difference. The problem is if you pay too much attention to your breathing, like for Sammy, right? She needs grounding. In order to actually feel your spine more, you need to feel grounded, right? And you can imagine in Sammy's situation, she's not touching the floor, she's not touching the ground, she doesn't have much balance, right? So grounding is something that you probably are taking more for granted than you should, right? So on these next few breaths, feel your sitting bones, feel the outsides of your feet, see if you can get a little bit over, just a little bit, yeah, right? Because it all matters, right? Everything matters. Right? And you breathe. It's not pressure. The great thing about it, that everything matters, doesn't create pressure for you. It creates opportunity. You get to decide how you're going to live in your body. All right. So this idea that your spine is actually more than your head. Your head organizes stuff, you guys. It organizes. Your spine emanates. Your mind doesn't, right? It tries to organize and judge. So today we're going to have more of a class that's going to be more about the spine in ways that you're not, and to get people to feel stuff more through the spine than you're used to feeling, right? So one simple way, everyone stretch your arms down to your sides if you can, or if you don't want to do that arm, just like stretch down through the elbow, right? Stretch your arms down. Sit up straight and tall, stretch your arms down. Figure out how to broaden across your collarbones, broaden across the back ribs. Why? So you can feel more. Expansion's a really important sensation, right? So lift under the collarbones to help the expansion, but that's actually what happens on an inhalation. Right? And then you're going to inhale on an inhalation. Why an inhalation? Because you want to follow the expansion, right? Exhaling while your body's expanding is going to not work as well. You could prove it to yourself. Try to exhale on an expansion, right? I wouldn't do it that way. Inhale, take your arms wide. So assistants maybe come help some people. Take their arms wide. And so you got the wall, you guys got some stuff, right? So, but we're trying to get you to go more inward, right? So I want you to stretch out through your arms, but do so from the center of the chest, out through the center of the elbow, out through the center of the wrist. At the same time, I want you to drop down at your base of your spine, at your groin, and stretch out through the heels and stretch out to the top of your head, right? So this isn't easy, right? For sure. So let's think about, there's a lot to learn from Sammy and how she has to do yoga, you guys. We had Sammy for a long time, right? And part of it is the difference of sensation for your breath when you feel more grounded. Good, now watch when the person goes away from helping, your arms get heavier, right? But so now Kim here, she's not getting any help, but so she's got to make the side waist to the side armpit chest strong, and she needs to connect that to the underside of the arms, right? Turn your palms up Take your arms up over your head. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to keep coming over here once in a while and doing that too, just so you feel that. Not all the time. It's hard because you can't not fall into that hip because of your hip, right? So it's not something you're trying to you can't, don't be mad at it, right? Good, and then take your arms down. So now I want you to notice something. So assistants, on this next couple of things, you're going to breathe, and so the assistant's going to come and either put your feet into their feet. With Kim, you're maybe going to touch on her knees, right? But I want you to get the experience of grounding. I want you to pay attention to something subtle. I want you to pay attention to the way your breath feels different. So again, I'm going to use Sammy as and she knows, she's used to me using her a lot, right? She's been my student for a long time, right? So one of the things is when Sammy first started coming to class, we could barely hear her talk, right? And she was 19, she'd been in for years, she was not being a very happy camper, right? And it was a lot because her diaphragm was being aced. You know, like when you're stepping off a curb and the curb's higher than you thought it was, and you have that feeling of falling between you go like, whoa, and you're reaching for the ground, that feeling right there. That's what it's like for Sammy to breathe, right? Because she doesn't have as much grounding here to show her where her spine is. Again, I see her, she smiles right away because guess what? I just kept her company right in her struggle. Like she struggles with every breath. Doesn't mean she struggles to breathe. She has to work harder to breathe than you do. A ton. So at Mind Body Solutions, we just try to be company, right? We try to figure out how to do little things. So I want you to figure out, knowing that she's getting a big smile on her face from being more grounded. You're going to breathe. You're going to take a couple breaths without the grounding. And I want you to be a good enough student to hear the difference between when you're grounded and when you're not, right? And I want you to figure out how to make that space matter, right? All right, so you're sitting there taking a couple breaths. And then we're just, and this is going to be subtle. I wish I could make it louder for you, but I can't. I want you to figure out opportunity from subtlety. And just notice the difference when you have a little bit more of the grounding sensation, right? And what it does to your breath. Now, if you can't see at first the changes in your breath, right? When the grounding goes away, everyone release, and here comes gravity. Do you feel how the difference is for your inhalation? Right? It turns out that expansion requires base. It requires grounding. And breathing is a form of expansion. Right? So again, you're going to just feel the difference to your breath when you're more grounded and try to really make their difference. I will never lie to you about stuff like this. There's a big difference in your breath when you're more grounded or not. And it's for you as a student to realize the opportunity. Right? Now watch when it goes away again and watch how you feel the sinking back down and boom, 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 right? Okay, so now keep the sensation of grounding. So one of the most important things about a yoga student is their ability to utilize memory and carry it forward. Right? That's a big thing. It's one of the most important attributes of a yoga student, right? And it's going to, if you end up coming to class and just taking, and you're not exercising your memory more consciously, you're missing a whole bunch of opportunity, especially why we have so many assistants, right? Because you're not going to be able to bring the assistants home, right? And so you better be able to bring your memory home. So on these next couple of breaths, feel the connection in the grounding. What does that change in you? And then watch your inhalation and exhalation. But still remember, can you feel their touch on your knees? You can do it from memory, right? Right? And now it goes away, and you got to keep it. Keep that grounding. There you go. Keep the grounding sensation on your own, and see if you can affect your breath. Right? It's tricky. There ain't nothing easy about this stuff. Right? And I'd like to tell you that everything I could teach you could be loud, and I'm just straightening your back, right? Loud like fireworks, but it's not. Opportunity is almost always subtle. You heard that line? Opportunity in yoga is almost always subtle. All right. So now, again, inhale and take your arms wide on an inhalation and expand. Extend beyond your fingertips. Imagine it. So like here, she can't take one arm up, and I'm fine with that, but I want her to make sure she extends the arm that isn't going all the way up, right? And she balances it with that action, because if she balances the two actions, she's going to feel her legs more. Can you tell which arm has an easier time holding up on its own? Right? So that's going to be an opportunity to breathe more into the arm that has a harder time staying up. So what inhalation does is help your spine extend into your limbs. That it amplifies the sensation of expansion. And then you're exhaling and you're extending. So you're growing right into the world on the extension. Good, and then take your arms down. All right, so those of you that can, and I'd like someone who, do you work with her? You guys know each other, you're good like glue? All right. All right, so I might have you take your legs, well, you guys can decide, but I might have you take your legs wide, but depends on how tight your hamstrings are, right? But I want everyone to lean forward, and then come back. And I know this seems really simple. It's not simple, right? We're going to start doing some stuff, right? I want you to feel some differences. So I want you to come forward some and then go back, right? Forward some. Now imagine it matters. Like you take coming over your sits bones for granted until you can't do it very well. I'm telling you right now, Sammy does not get to take advantage or not appreciate what it means to come across her sitting bones with gravity, right? And then come back again, right? And so I want you to come forward, ground, and then lift up through your chest. So we're starting the beginning of a sun salutation, right? Right, so you come forward, and I would decide maybe put your arms to your side. Try to figure out where your arms should be, right? Because here's the deal. I'm going to try this from now on. I talk about breath now. I'm going to try to get your spine to go out through your limbs better, right? The energy of your spine. And this is a good thing that Sue's doing here, right? Look at how she's got conditions of safety must be met for the spine to release, for Kundalini energy in your spine to release through your body. So what I like about what's seen here, look how symmetrical it is. You can see where her ankles are, her wrists are, her shoulders are. That grounding feeling, right, is going to allow for the spine to rise, and emanate more. Exactly because she's choosing balance, right, as one of the pillars of her asana right there, right? So I want you to be very aware of where you put your hands. I want you to grab wherever you think it works. I want you to know that you're supporting, if you actually were to let your shoulders go up towards your ears, do that, your spine gets duller. Can you feel like you literally start to hide in your joints, right? So where you put your hands, how you sit, whatever you decide to do there actually really matters. You getting hot? You okay? Be honest with me, okay? Yeah, because we turned off the air conditioning because it's so loud. All right, so then get and try to figure out which hip you're off, because the more, and if you can't straighten out, it's okay, but the more straight you can get, the better, right? And breathe into the sense of alignment. So you put your hand on the back of her sternum, so she gets to feel grounding from the back. And you know, tell with Sammy, she'll start to smile, right away. And then you know something happened right? All right. And so you're now trying to be more aware of your joints, your ankles, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists. Your head's a joint. So the more you can be in your body, the more effective your breath is going to be. So as you're being more aware of where your joints are in space, which is what Gita Iyengar says you're teaching all beginning students, is joint awareness. Synchronicity between the joints is very difficult. That's one of the things asana is doing. So you're trying to do this, feel do you know how to bring more awareness to your hips? To your wrists? Do you know how to open your ankles and your feet? Do you know how to open your elbow pits without jamming the elbows forward? Right? These are things that I'm going to tell you are going to give you way more energy during your day. Right? For sure. But it is not for free. you have to figure out how to do it better, right? So you're trying to be, so like I can tell, you're not as connected to the left elbow, right? And that means the way you're having your hand on the table is part of it, right? Yep, try to figure out how to have your hand. So you're trying to figure out what joint can you see better, right? What joint, I'm just going to just touch you for a little bit here, throw you off balance here, and breathe into all your joints. So your inhalation starts to touch all your joints. And then you exhale and you extend your energy from your spine out through the top of your head and through the sitting bones. The exhalation is not an expansion, it's an extension, right? So you expand on the inhalation and you extend on the inhalation. So on the exhalation. So it's like on an exhalation, your spinal energy comes more into a straight line. And on an inhalation, it expands in every direction. This is going to be crucial when you're doing asana. Like when you start exhaling and extending, inhaling and expanding, right? So I want you to like just feel that, but with a more grounded thing, because it's going to be harder. Now, now you've got a nice base for your spine right now, and then the inhalation helps you expand. Now take your arms wide and bring gravity again in, and watch what happens. It's going to be harder to breathe into expansion, especially if you struggle with balance. Right? So I want you to feel that the muscular action is actually not helping the expansion created out of your spine. Your muscular action has to figure out how to be, right? Traveling through all the joints, right? So as you're working your arms, did you pull awareness out of your ankles? Mm-hmm. Did you like figure out how to stay in the whole body in a simple action? And then turn your palms up and take them up over your head. But oh my God, you better hit down through your sitting bones at the same time. And then you better inhale and feel an expansion on your spine, even though you can't expand as well. And then exhale and extend. Exhale and extend. So it's going to be harder to expand on the inhalation when your arms are straight over your head. It's going to be more limited to your rib cage, but the exhalation is going to get an advantage, right? On the exhale, you're going to be able to extend up and hit down, right? So you're expanding right into like a small room into your rib cage, but then you're extending on the exhalation. Good, and then take your arms down. So what I would like would be now a child's, a downward-facing dog. So I don't know, some of you probably figured out some stuff for your downward-facing dog. Like for Sammy, it's going to be just coming forward on her elbows under the thing, so she's going to do that. Do you guys so an assistant, Bethany, come here for a second. So with, come here, so you're going to take your arms up over your head. She's going to stand in front of her. You guys have done this, right? Arms over your head, palms together. Let her lean forward into palms. No, you guys touch palms. You do right angle with her, right? She comes forward. You allow her to come forward. Take her arms up a little higher. Mm-hmm. Right? So this would be an adaptive seated downward-facing dog, right? She's got to hit down through her sits bones, broaden across her collarbones, extend up through her arms while keeping her shoulder blades down, breathing for her sitting bones, right? So some version on everybody, I want this to happen, where you're actually, and then you're really hitting down through your sitting bones, extending up through your arms, right? Smiling with your armpits and using some reference, right? Because, Molly, can you hold on just a second? Just do a down-facing dog here. All right, so this is the pose we're talking about, obviously, right? And we're trying to have the assistant be the ground for your hands, right? But come down on your knees now. If you're seated, knees a little farther back, right? If you're seated, this is more like what the pose is. Don't worry about your legs being straight, right? All right, do it again. So partner up. And I want you to breathe and feel the expansion on your rib cage. Can you lean forward a little bit? Mm-hmm. Arms go up a little higher. Is that too much? Don't let it hurt. Okay? Right? You feel the difference between here and here? Oh, totally. But it helps everyone. That's the seat of consciousness right here, right? So I'm giving you reference on where you're centered, right? Yeah, and you can feel your ankles more. No, spread your toes a little bit. Yeah, not too hard. Go slower. Mm-hmm. feel the whole part. So if I go here, notice the awareness go to your heels, right? If I go here, you got an opportunity to open the soles of your feet, right? Yeah. All right. So you're doing that, you're breathing. And what do you figure out? Yep, that's good. See, that's the core of down facing dog. Is that, yeah, whether your arms are over your head or not, right? All right. Good, and then release. Now that should have been some effort, right? It's getting a little hot in here, dang it, right? But so now I want you to then come forward again, and you can decide if you're sitting on the floor and your legs are getting tired, bend your knees, right? Don't worry about it, right? But I want you to come forward and then lift so those of you that are able to, you two, can actually go on your stomachs and do upward facing dog, right? Yeah. Right, everyone here, I want you to inhale, expand, exhale, come forward, right? Inhale, come on up and lift the spine. So you're doing, and then come back. So you're doing a little bit of so you're watching it. So you exhale down, inhale up, fall back. So, right, and I want Sammy to try this a little bit without getting too scared to fall back. Right? It never stops. You understand? I'll never stop that with you, right? All right. So I want you to come across the sits bones, ground, inhale, start to rise up with your spine. So we're trying to get an undulating action with your spine, right? So now instead of focusing so much on breathing, right, we're trying to get an inhale, expansion, exhale forward, inhale up, come on back. Ground, inhale, exhale forward, inhale up. A few more times, then you guys release and come back down. Down, you put your forehead on the ground, and you inhale and come up. And so I want you to go back and forth and get this feeling of your spine. I don't just want your head to go back. I want your spine to go. So check it out. Can you imagine how much yoga Sammy's having to do right now? Because she can only really move her head, but she's working hard to find her tailbone, right? So she's grounding down through her tailbone, finding it, and inhaling and coming up, right? And it's way more energetic. Anyone feel the heat coming? It's way different. Good, and then release. And then just sit here for a second. Sit and ground and see if you can feel from undulating your spine more directly. Can you feel that kind of almost fatigue, that energy? Land that into Shavasana. Feel that and breathe into that. What you're calling fatigue is actually also the spine, the subtle energy of the spine moving through the nervous system, right? So you want to have the effort and integrate the change created by the effort. Don't just think you're supposed to nourish from it. Or have to heal from it or recover. The actual energy of the exertion as it sits when you're not moving is part of what needs to come back to your spine, right? So you're not healing your effort. You're not resting. You're actually trying to utilize. All right. So I remember, I think Sammy was in this class, but I want you guys to sit up, you, Kim, and you sit up, right? So we did this thing and it created a flutter, right? Now here the class is going to start to get harder, okay? So, so there's, we were just doing this with the spine. It was more upper body, right? And what I want is, say if we were all in a chair, okay, I want you to start you're gonna have to, I'm not sure, you're gonna lean back, okay? And you're gonna rise, everyone's gonna try to bend one leg up, put your sole of your foot down if you're on the floor, but do it on an inhalation. And then exhale and straighten it back out, right? And then inhale and take the other leg up. So you're trying to help her knees come up each time, right? So keep one leg straight, one leg bent, right? So you might help her a little bit because I don't want her to work too hard. I want her to get So if you help her like do it a little bit, if the movement is hard, right, help the person, some assistant. So help Sue a little bit, right? Because what I want the student, to quote, the student to feel is inhale and something rises, exhale down. Inhale, something rises, exhale down, right? And notice the change in your pelvis, notice everything, every little change, right? You know, you missed me too. I didn't just miss you, right? All right, and then inhale up, keep rotating knees. Exhale as the leg straightens, but don't forget that on the exhalation, you're extending your spine into space, right? So you're inhaling up, you're exhaling down, and you're extending. Inhale up. Exhaling and then extending out on the exhalation. Back and forth. A few more times. Changing your relationship to gravity while moving your body is what an asana does. Now, why wouldn't we just make it harder? Because that's all yogis did, right? They went, when I stand straight up and down, I feel something, but what if I went on my head? Would I feel the same thing? That'd be an inversion, right? Like all of a sudden, they just started to make it harder. They thought, let's see if I can test this realization. Let me see if I can make the movement more complicated and stay on the same truth, right? So I want you to inhale, take your right leg up and your right arm up. Take the right leg up and the right arm. And then exhale back down, right? And do it together so the arm starts to synchronize with the leg. Inhale. We might have to take like an air conditioning break because I'm seeing some glow on people's faces, right? Yeah, awesome, Sammy, right? Like she's making vinyasa yoga out of everything. And it's not just her limbs that are moving. She's doing it from her spine. You can see that? You guys, take note here. She's doing more yoga with less than any of us in the room right now, right? So you inhale and take them both up, right? And you try to feel it. And then exhale, you come back down and ground. And then take a recovery breath, right? Inhale and just exhale once before you go to the other side, right? And then inhale and take the arm and the leg up. And then exhale and take it down. And then take a recovery breath. And then do it again. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Take a break. Again, for some of you, that's pretty hard to do, right? So you got that kind of hum. Feel that hum? There's whole methods, teaching styles in yoga that say that there's one ancient text that says yoga doesn't happen until the edge of complete failure, right? Meaning that that's why some people have you hold poses forever, right? And make it really physically hard because in that moment when you're about to fail, like fall on your face, you learn something new because you don't want to fall on your face, right? And part of it is the energy of fatigue is part of your teacher, right? So, and especially, and that's one of the things you want to get in. So I don't teach you like make poses so hard and push the class so hard, but I want you to get that the movement and the coming back after the movement is part of why you're doing the movement, right? So you can have the motions in your body even when you're still. All right, so now it's going to get a step weirder. Remember, I think that there, yeah, can you believe that? Yeah, no, it's going to get worse, right? So we did all this more in the outer body, and for some of you are like the outer body movement, and you're thinking that that's what yoga is. Right? So that's why I started with more big movements, right? Now I want you to sit there, right? And I want you to lift without me seeing too much. I want you to lift out of one of your sitting bones and then back down. And then lift out of the other sitting bone and then back down. And so we're just going to do it a couple times like that, where your abdomen, your fascia around your organs, you're not just lifting up your leg, you're actually trying to lift your sitting bone, right? So inhale, right? No, don't worry about the breath. Just like lift up one sitting bone and then the other, right? And go back and forth between that and really try to lift it without lifting your leg. And then back, and then ground for a second. And then the right side, lift the right sitting bone. And then release. Ground, inhale, and now lift the left sitting bone, right? So you're trying to get this feeling of getting, and then maybe you just move a little bit. So you start to get a little slinky on the inside. So there's a little bit of outer body movement, but your lower abdomen is really firing to lift your sits bones, right? So you lift your right sits bones, you ground your left, and then you release. You lift your left sits bone and ground your right, and then you release. And go back and forth a few times. And if I were an assistant, I'd be doing this too. Seriously. This is going to create an exorbitant amount of heat, right? Back and forth and back and forth. So you're trying to, we got to get you lifted out of your left sits bones, right? Even though physically you can't. All right, that's part of why I'm teaching this, is because I was thinking about your, right, where you're trying to get back and forth, and it's hard. It should be hard work. Really hard, yeah. It's really hard work. And then release for a second, and just feel the hum. Now, can you feel? So when you try to lift a sitting bone, like I'm doing right now, right, and then going back and forth. Right? Does anyone feel the spreading across the back ribs? Can you feel like your diaphragm of the mid-back is actually being a big part of what's lifting? Right? Can you feel that? Okay, you guys know that Bikas Iyengar says the diaphragm is the intersection of the physical body and the spiritual body? The physical body and the subtle body, the intersection is at the diaphragm? Did you notice that when you lifted and you didn't move so much, but you lifted on the inside, you felt more heat come? It's almost like more effort, right? Going back and forth. And you can feel it across your mid-back too. So I'm actually asking you to really work your spine right now. Right? In a way that it didn't have to when you were doing this. Right? When you were doing this. You can do, I'm telling you, I watch beginners, I've been teaching for a long time. Some beginners move their limbs and never move their spine. Right? In a traditional class. And they're missing a whole bunch of it, right? So now this idea, and you feel, now start lifting each sits bone, be more aware of what's happening on your mid-back, right? Across your diaphragm. So lift your right sits bone, release, ground, left sits bone. But as you do, start to become more aware of your feet, right? So you're lifting back and forth. And I want you to keep going. It's going to create some heat. Back and forth. Now start to synchronize your breath. Inhale, lift your right sits bone. Exhale, and then inhale and lift the other. Start getting your breath. So your diaphragm is not only acting as a breathing agent, it's acting as a movement agent. And then just sit here for a second and release. Do you feel the flood? Breathe into the flood. Breathe into the subtle body. What happened to Molly? All right, so do down facing dog here again. So when we're doing down facing dog, right, This is the energy, right? And you're really trying to learn to lengthen your spine, which is anytime you can make space in your spine, it's a good thing, right? All right, and then come on down for a second. So that's on a vertical plane. Your spine is just going, and then stand up. Face this way. Take your feet hip width apart. Wide like a standing pose. When she's turning one foot in, one foot out, and then taking her arms wide, right? And then changing gravity, right? This Trikonasana, but think about the pieces of this, right? She's got, and then turn feet straight ahead. All these little movements as she turns one foot in and one foot out. Guess what I'm just having you do right there, right? I'm wanting, and then go back the other way, right? Right? These actions that, by the way, traditional students don't realize how important they are. They just like turn one foot in, one foot out. They let the whole body collapse. They do all sorts of things, right? But that we're trying to, don't let that back hip come so far forward. Come on, get that back. Yeah, right? All right? Because if she does this, she makes her arms work more. If she keeps this open, see how she just expanded through her limbs? All I'm doing is making sure that this action stays equal, right? So what I'm trying to get you to do, we're going to go back to downward facing dog in a second, but I want you to get, so what happens here, right, as she stays open, right, so she inhales and she comes down, and turn your feet straight ahead for a second. You better go the other way because you had, right, slow down, turn your feet straight ahead. And I want you to watch, right, so turn that foot in, that foot out. She's trying to keep it, yep, very strong. So she's getting, and the whole time, can you see how because her arms are up, she's having to keep this up, which is exactly part of what I was just trying to show you. Right? And then she changes gravity. She inhales, she exhales, and she comes down. Right? But look what happened. Guess what happened? This stuck way too far out. She just screwed up her pose, but that's all right. Right? Right? And because she did the equivalent of moving and falling as opposed to moving and activating. Right? And this is, no matter who you are, this is happening in an asana. So now what's going to happen, right? And then take your arms down. Right? Now, I wanted you to get that what I'm trying to teach you guys is way harder than a traditional class. It's way harder because you don't get to hide behind all the big movements. You're having to learn the little movements really directly, right? So what we're going to do, so I want you to get this sense of this turning in and out, but then I'm going to have you go over some and wherever you're sitting, and then come back. And make sure you don't, what happens in your pelvis as you're doing this. Make sure, and what's going to happen is generally you lose the back hip, but you got to keep something lifted in here, right? So spread out a little bit. You guys are fine, right? This class goes till 3, right? You didn't listen. How long this class goes till 3? 12:30? All right. So now, and maybe you allow them to come over, the assistant allows them to ground them on your shoulder or something, right? So they can come over to something. But I want you to, here's what I mean. And what is your name again? Rita. So what's going to happen is on her legs wide, on inhalation, Sue's going to take her arm wide, but is going to put it right on Rita's, because I'm not so interested in balance. I mean, right? So I want you to get, right? Yeah, but now everything matters, right? So do it like you're doing yoga, right? So inhale and come out and come over, right? Some. Extend out through the other arm, right? To whatever you can. Don't hurt anything, right? And really notice the difference in your pelvis, right? So if I wanted to make this more yogic for Sue, I would put my hand behind her sternum. Right? Because she's, but we'll do that for her in a second. But I want you to get this, don't just go, oh, I'm going to lean over. Here's me being sloppy, and then come on back, Sue. Right? So here's me, right? That's just like you, if you think the outer pose is the pose, you just kind of, right? Oh, guess what? I want you to make everything matter and come back. Everything matter and come back. Nice, Carol. Now take your head back a little bit, right? And do we have a foam block? Can you hand me that foam block for a second? come over, and maybe come down a little bit. You can let her come down a little bit. Yeah. Extend up a little bit, but fire the energy through your legs, right? Fire it out through your legs as you're opening on the upper body, because that's what a standing pose is doing, right? You're learning how to move your arms and legs, but again, I hope you're getting that it's your spine that matters. So, Kim, because you can, like you could just turn and then use the wall for the arm, so you're not hanging in the air. Right? You might have to move. Oh, you just stay there. It's fine. Right? And then go back. Yep, and extend. Now, the idea here is that your spine is doing the standing pose, not the limbs. Right? The limbs are receiving the standing pose. This is something that a beginning student or a 25 years into practicing student that hasn't had to do the inner body doesn't realize. Everything's about your spine, stupid. Right? That's what I realized about 15 years ago. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh my God, it's about my spine. Stupid. It isn't about what I'm actually able to do all on the outside. Is this good? Right? More. Do you have someone blocking you here? I'm pushing you over because I want you over. I want you over. Is that okay? Yep. See the freedom of that? Find your legs. Right? And then release. So you might want to take your legs wide because you can. So now, as you're doing this, now you figured out what to do with your arm, and now the assistant is actually going to put their feet into your feet. All right, so you don't get this reference over here, you're going to get it more into your pelvis, which is going to change the whole pose again. How are you doing it going the other way, Carol? Again, you're trying to walk and make your spine extend. Now, what happens when you get reference on your feet? You should maybe be able to go, whoop, here we go, whoop, because you're going to be able to get a grounding presence in order to extend your spine from. And then do it each way and then take a second. So it turns out, this is where it's going to get confusing. And then come back to center for a second. So, stand up and you're going to Trikonasana again. Okay, so arms and legs wide, and we're trying to make sure she doesn't throw away her pelvis here. So turn the left foot in, right foot out, right foot in, left foot out. There you go. Right? So, she's going to inhale and expand. And when she starts falling through gravity, she's going to exhale to extend. Now I want you to think about that for a second, right? She's inhaling to expand. When she starts to change gravity and to get more particular, and she exhales as she extends, she's extending on the exhalation the whole time. When you're falling through gravity, because if she were just expanding in all directions as she's falling through gravity, she's going to confuse the mind. So if you try to come down through gravity on an inhalation, you're not going to be nearly as coordinated. You're trying to take advantage of the extension, the narrowing on the exhalation to help her come through gravity. Now, when she comes up, of course, right, she's going to inhale and expand from the spine and come up from the back arm, right? So there's a constant interplay, and then go the other way. There's a constant interplay of when you're expanding and when you're extending in all poses. And so, again, she's going to inhale. When she comes through gravity, she's going to exhale and find where and then ground, and she's going to inhale and expand the pose again, and then she's going to exhale and extend the pose again, right? So you get this constant interplay of different ways of entering the world on inhalation and exhalation. One's coming more from the inside out, and the exhalation is a slightly more extension of your will, right, on the exhalation. And then come on back on inhalation. Now she's doing both because she's pulling up through the arm on an inhalation, right? But you're trying to combine both. So I want you to be more cognizant now of when your arms are wide, inhale, expand, exhale, extend. So if you got your feet into their feet, take your feet off them for a second because their brain is going to habituate the reference, right? So let's make them do it once on their own so it sucks a little bit more, and then come back and help them, and so it feels better, right? So you're inhaling and you're expanding, and you're exhaling as you come off to the side more. Right? So you come over to the side and come down, boom, and land your hand. Boom, boom, thank the room. And extend up through the other arm. Now, when you're over at this point, I want you to inhale and come on up, and then exhale and expand through all your limbs. Inhale again, and exhale and bring your hands down to your sides. Inhale again, take your arms wide. Exhale, extend the other way. And ground and extend. Find where the upper arm has to ground, ground it, and then ground it, inhale, expand, and exhale farther into the pose. And then on an inhalation, come up as if I'm pulling you from the upper arm, and on an inhalation, even extend through the upper arm so you come up more evenly. Come on up to center. Come on up. Yep. Take your arms down on exhalation. Boom. Land. Take a breath. So we're trying to get this idea of breathing and movement. I'm teaching a more vinyasa class, right? So, you have a question? I know. It's not going to kill you.
Is there any way to do it?
You learn how to do it even though it's not perfect. The trick, so her question is, she has trouble going to one side because it makes her fall into her curve, which means she's not going to suddenly get rid of her curve. That means it's not going to change, which means for you as a student, that means that you have to make sure you don't perpetrate violence on that side. That's the big deal. But what violence is doesn't mean you're not doing it. You're just not pushing as hard, right? All right, so inhale, take your arms up. Expand. Exhale, extend on the exhalation out to the left. Find grounding, right? And then and lift right there, right? There you go. And then inhale and come back up. Not to the other side yet, Sue. Be in the middle, right? And then exhale and take your arms down. Inhale, take your arms wide. Exhale, extend the other way. Open your feet. Not jam your knee. Inhale, expand into the pose. Exhale, extend into the pose. Again, inhale, expand into the pose. Exhale, extend into the pose. Right? So this helps you expand, and you're driving it to an extension. Right? Good, and then come on up. Sit in the center, and that's enough, because anyone getting sore in the low back? You okay? Going side to side is not easy. So what I'd like to do now is have the assistants pull out on someone's heels. Do you guys do the rack much or not? Okay. All right, so why don't we rack the people on the floor, and then we'll make up stuff if you're sitting in a chair. Yeah, lay down flat. So if it helps you stay more on balance, you might take one leg down and have one leg up and then switch. I might do that. Yeah, exactly. So almost always, yep, so to get the spasm done. So for you, right, always choose the balance. So if that means doing one leg and doing half of what I'm saying, do half of what I'm saying, right? Right, so, but from here, you can also pull out just on the back of her knees too. Like if you were to just pull out on each knee, if you were to drop this leg for a second, and then pull out on the, reach behind each knee. Right, now you gotta not let yourself just get pulled right out of the seat, right? But you're just trying to make space. You keep your sits bones down. You're trying to make space here and pulling her hips out of her hip socket a little bit. Do you feel that at all? The pull on your, and then that space needs to be in your chest.
My hamstrings.
Is it too hard? Is it too painful?
A couple times a day, if they get crampy.
You better stick around. I know you have your own life, but not really.
I kind of like her. I might.
It's over. You know, you stick around. Mm-hmm. So you're getting the space in your low back. It should feel good, right? And then release. And so for Sammy, it's also just like the variation. So after she's had it for a while, release for a second and let her put her feet on your legs for a second and let her ground again. And so she's gonna learn way more from the contrast. Because like if you are moving, you get all these contrasts, you're not even conscious of it. She needs more contrasts, right? So you let her ground for a second and then you start pulling again. Or maybe this time you pull on her knees and you feel a different type of thing, right? And then you make sure you're feeling it too. You're not just pulling on her. You're like just like having it be a shared, because it feels good to her. You have to open yourself in order to let her know that it feels good there. And the more you guys share that sensation without necessarily having to look at each other all the time, right? The more you're gonna get out of helping, right? Because you're gonna learn a whole bunch of stuff about how to be here from being with Sammy. Like I have, actually. Mm-hmm. So then, you guys have gotten a little bit of rack. Maybe there's a little bit of rhythm, right? What's going on? Getting tired?
Yeah.
Good. Is that part of what we're talking about? So then, so you guys, I'm sure you've done this, but you're going to stand up and take your legs up in the air. And then you're going to put them on your front of your, stand a little closer to her, you know, and then you're just going to sway back and forth, right? And go like you're part of it, right? Yeah, go like you're part of it, right? So, so I'm coming over here for a second. So I'm going to push on your rib cage, just so you feel what it is to have reference here. Does that feel relief, right? So this and that for your breath, right? So you don't have to strain all the time. Even though this is work, can you see that there's relief here, right? So you're pushing in the rhythm on her knees, right? Did someone pull out on Beth's ankles? Okay. So it's funny, the paradox that we actually often live is that we both want the world to be a bigger place and we don't want anything to change. Right? In order to find an easier way to live in your body and live with whatever condition you're living in with, you're not going to find that space by working in the same way. You've been there, you've done that, you've tried that, you've done it. This isn't just for people who are, quote, living with disabilities. This is for everyone in the room. Right? It's not going to get better by doing the same thing. And what it is to let in more and let in more sensation. Like, there's different ways. You don't have to feel all your emotions in order to feel. Part of this class and classes in general are helping you have an expanded repertoire of sensation, because that's going to make you feel more alive. So we ended with rhythm as a calming down. We pulled out on your heels so you could get space at the base of your spine, which would bring relief from all the side bending, right? And then into that space, a little bit of nourishing, calming rhythm, right? Because these are different sensations that as you're trudging through your day, you tend not to pay attention to because life is demanding. Shavasana is a balancing pose where you try to land. So everyone in the room, do Shavasana right now. Unless Molly needs to do whatever she's doing at the camera. So yeah, in Shavasana, if you get tired and you fall asleep, that's okay. Although that's not really the point of Shavasana. But sometimes it's the consequence of Shavasana. So, Molly, will you turn off the air conditioning? Because I hate the cold air in Shavasana. Right. So, the ability to let yourself land, to actually take support from what's around you, to have that be a three-dimensional realization, right? As opposed to a mental allowing. Because you're trying to let the space in you open and unfurl in Shavasana. And let what you can't control be part of the balance of Shavasana. You can open to it though. So pick a point on the inner edge of each shoulder blade, on the back of each upper arm, each elbow, and let go. Feel like it's sound in your joints, your ankles, your knees, and your hips. There's space in there. What you think is just quiet is actually a sensation, and it's calming for the mind. So your ankles, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists. Soften the skin on your face, around the temples. Your jaw is a joint. Let go of the inside of your mouth. Release the base of the tongue. All these things so you can be here more. So the hum is more unified. The hum is what touches everything. Not only is the space in your body already balanced, but the space in your body is already balanced with the space outside of you. This is literally true. This isn't just a thought. This is a realization. And it's why Shavasana is in every pose. The unity comes from the subtlety, not from the action. Let go. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. It animates the hum. Your head doesn't do that. It's reason to be grateful. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open and close your eyes a couple times. Let the light in slowly. When you're ready, and if you can, bring your hands into prayer. Namaste. Spirit in me bows to the spirit in you. All right. So like if you think about it, kindness is actually going to be more unified with the universe. That's why it's such a great virtue. It's not just helping another person. Kindness actually lives in space differently. Right? All right.